What's up, guys? Orcas here, and today we got another video. Today we're going to be going over the Vikings playoff preview. So let's see what the Vikings do in the playoffs this year. They're going up against the Rams, first playoff game. Hopefully the Vikings can get past them. I do want to mention that the Vikings and Rams are going to be playing in Arizona because of the wildfires. And first off, I do want to say my prayers and thoughts have been going to Southern California, Los Angeles area. Thousands and thousands of structures have been destroyed, homes, businesses, and lots of other stuff. My thoughts and prayers go out to them, and if there is any way you guys can help them out, I would definitely encourage that. Donate to wherever, Red Cross, through other places, whatever you can do to help. I definitely will be doing that as well. I haven't got the opportunity to yet, but I definitely will be donating some money to the cause. Hopefully Southern California, Los Angeles area can recover from this, and I think they will. But prayers to the families who have been affected. Rest in peace to those who have passed from it. And but anyways, let's get back into the video. So yes, like I said, they're going to be playing in Arizona because of the conditions, the wildfire conditions. Everything else going on will make it not very good to be playing in Los Angeles. It'd be obviously Rams SoFi Stadium. That's in Los Angeles, so it doesn't really make much sense to be playing there after all this. So they're going to be playing in Arizona in the Cardinals Stadium, I believe. So even though this isn't, obviously this isn't a good thing that they're not playing in SoFi Stadium, it is, in a way, kind of nice. It gives the Vikings a little bit of advantage. They're not going to be playing at their opponent's home stadium. And you might see a little bit more balanced fan crowd. Like, it might not be majority Rams fans there. You never know. Vikings fans travel good. So, and there's people in Arizona. I feel like the Cardinals and Rams, they're in the same division. So Cardinals fans might be rooting for the Vikings to win this game. So you might see a lot of Cardinals fans show up and be rooting for the Vikings. You never know. But we'll just have to see what that is. But again, like I said, this is possibly a good advantage for the Vikings, because if I remember correctly, the Vikings did play the Rams this year at SoFi Stadium already, and obviously got handed one of their few losses on the season. Obviously, the other losses were because of Detroit. We just saw that last week. But maybe since the Vikings aren't playing at SoFi Stadium, in the Rams Stadium, this gives them a little bit more advantage. But we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. It honestly does make me a little bit more positive to pick the Vikings in this game. Even if they were playing at SoFi Stadium, I think I would have still been picking the Vikings to win this. But I have a lot more hope for the Vikings to win this game now that they're not going to be playing at the Rams Stadium. So that's a little bit of, obviously not good that they can't play at SoFi Stadium because of the conditions, but it is good for the Vikings that they don't have to play at their opponent's, obviously, stadium. So maybe a little bit more of an advantage. It doesn't really matter, but it could be a little bit helpful. I do have the Vikings winning this game. And hopefully they can bounce back from last week. I do want to talk a little bit about last week, because that was probably the worst game I've seen the Vikings play, for sure. The first loss that the Vikings got handed to by Detroit, it was a rough one, but at least the Vikings had some grit. They came back. They were down by like 2 scores, and then they came back. They were in the lead, and then, of course, they lost to a field goal with the clock running out. So it was a little unfortunate, but the Vikings showed grit in that game. They almost legitimately beat Detroit in that game. Granted, it was at their home stadium, but still. And then, obviously, we know what happened after that, the Thursday night game. They did lose to the Rams 20-30. Obviously, that controversial face mask call that kind of lost the Vikings the game from there. But they had to score 10 points in 2 minutes. It would have been unlikely, could have been done, but highly unlikely they would have been coming back from that. But I don't know. And then, of course, we had their final loss in the final week of the regular season. Just a bad game overall. Just not fun to watch. Vikings lose 31-9. They're like 0 for 4 in the red zone. Of course, they have some turnovers in the red zone as well, trying to get touchdowns off of that. It just nothing was working. Sam Darnold did not look like the Sam Darnold we knew from the rest of the regular season. The defense was playing good until the fourth quarter, obviously, but of course, when the offense isn't helping you out, the defense is going to start crumbling as well. And of course, the final score very well could have been like 17-9, but the Vikings just kind of let them get 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter just because the offense wasn't really doing anything. Obviously, that was burning the defense out. So the final score doesn't really say all that much. I would say the Vikings defense played really good in that game. Their offense, though, was just atrocious. I'm not really sure what was happening. I think the Vikings should have been running the ball more. They should have seen that Sam Darnold wasn't having a great game. Should have, focused more on the run game, maybe throw some more screen plays, short routes and stuff like that. But I don't know. It just wasn't working. Sam Darnold missing passes, got some drops. Obviously, the wide receivers, the tight ends, Hawkinson and them, just, of course, I guess, a lot of people will accuse the Lions of, holding the Vikings wide receivers, but you gotta play through it. You can't depend on the refs for everything. So the Vikings offense was just outclassed. The Lions defense played a great game, only held the Vikings to 9 points, which I'm pretty sure is the lowest amount of points the Vikings scored all season. I think the second lowest they scored was against the Jaguars, and that was also an atrociously bad Sam Darnold game. But this one, I think, was definitely worse for Sam Darnold. Unfortunate, but hopefully the Vikings can bounce back from that, and I think they will against the Rams. It'll be a good game, I think. I think it'll be a one-score game, but I do think the Vikings will come out of it victorious, and then we can see what will happen in the divisional. So it depends on who wins between the Commanders, Buccaneers, Packers, and Eagles. But the way I have my bracket going, I think the Vikings will play Detroit. Obviously, if the lowest seed, like 6th, 7th, 5th, whoever's the lowest seed remaining will play Detroit, and I think the lowest seed remaining will be the Vikings, because I think the Buccaneers will beat the Commanders and the Eagles will beat the Packers. So that would leave the Vikings as the lowest seed still at the 5th seed. So I think they would be playing Detroit in the divisional round. And call me crazy, but if that happens, I think the Vikings will bounce back, and I think they will beat Detroit. Third time's the charm, right? Hopefully that can happen. I do want to go over, some things. I think between the Vikings and the Rams, as I'm saying, I don't want to get too ahead. But again, like I said, I do think the Vikings will beat the Rams, then go to Detroit and win and be in the NFC Championship, and I'll get to that. But before that, I do want to say some things about the games. So between the Vikings versus Rams, I think the Vikings defense will adjust. Their defense did not play that great against the Rams in their first matchup. I'm pretty sure Stafford had like 270 plus yards, 4 touchdowns. Cooper Kupp had a good game. What's his name? Puka Nacua had a good game. A great game, matter of fact. I think Puka had over 100 something yards and like 2 touchdowns or whatever. So you got to do better on Puka Nacua. You got to do better on Cooper Kupp, who I'm pretty sure also had a touchdown and 50 plus yards. So the Vikings defense has to do better against them. You could chalk it up, though. There's a lot of asterisks to that Vikings game against the Rams. Obviously, that before that, the Vikings just came off a very close loss to Detroit on Sunday. And then, you don't know the whole plan, because the Vikings weren't even sure if Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua were going to be playing. And on top of that, you only have, 2 or 3 days of practice before you have to take a flight to Los Angeles to play the Rams. It just wasn't a good look for the Vikings. Very underprepared for that game. And I think the Rams had a massive advantage for that because of that, the uncertainty if Nakua and Kupp being played or not. Obviously, the Vikings coming off a close loss to Detroit, only having a few days to get ready for the Rams game, and still it was a pretty decent game. So I think, the Vikings, with a lot more time this time, obviously a week to prepare for this game, the Vikings go from a Sunday night game versus Detroit to a Monday game versus the Rams. I can't remember if this is what time is this game being played at? So yeah, this is a Monday night game. So you go from a Sunday night game to a Monday night game. That gives the Vikings a lot of time to prepare. The Rams also might be a little bit overwhelmed because of what's happening in California. Unfortunate for them, but it gives the Vikings an advantage, like I said. So I think the Vikings have a lot of momentum going into this game. They know what they're going up against. They know Nakua and Kupp will be playing this game. Hopefully they will have figured things out from that game, from that past game. Hopefully they'll know how to cover Stafford, make adjustments on the offense, especially learning from last game against Detroit, figuring out what they can do better. I think the Vikings will win this game. And then, of course, I project that the Vikings will be playing the Lions in the next round. And then I do think they will win at Detroit. Of course, they will be playing at Detroit's home stadium. And like I said, we know what happened, 31-9, just a bad game. But I think the Vikings will be able to figure out what went wrong. They'll make their adjustments and they'll figure out what happened against Detroit. You can say a lot of things going into last week's game against them. They are riding off that high of beating Green Bay Packers, holding up Sam Darnold like he's the MVP, the best quarterback they've ever had, celebrating perhaps a little too soon. They still had that game, and I think the Vikings were a little underprepared for Detroit, but I don't think the Vikings will underestimate them this time. They go into LA Rams, they beat the Rams, and then they're right back to being locked in against Detroit. I think they'll figure this stuff out that they did wrong. The Lions won't be ready for the adjustments that the Vikings will make, and I think the Vikings will go into their home stadium and beat Detroit and make the NFC Championship. But I will say, I think the NFC Championship is where the Vikings season unfortunately ends. I would love to see them in the Super Bowl, and I'm not saying that's impossible to happen, but unfortunately, I think the Eagles will make the NFC Championship, and they will beat the Minnesota Vikings just like they did in 2017, unfortunately. And honestly, it might be a blowout game as well. I just don't think the Vikings have what it takes to beat the Eagles. I don't think they'll be ready for it. The Eagles, I think their defense is gonna figure out the Vikings offense really well. I think they're gonna run all over us with Saquon Barkley. I don't think the Vikings will be ready for what the Eagles have coming. They haven't played the Eagles this year. So I think the Vikings will be underprepared for the Eagles, and I think the Eagles will win and make the Super Bowl. And if we want to go to AFC, I think the Chiefs will make the Super Bowl as well. I think it's going to be an Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl rematch from a couple of years ago. And yeah, that's what I have. I don't know who's going to win. My gut says to pick the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs will win again on the rematch, just like they did against San Francisco last year. Obviously, we know that the 49ers and Chiefs played a Super Bowl previously before that Super Bowl. They win both times against the Niners. I think the Chiefs will do the same thing against the Eagles and win both times against the Eagles in the Super Bowl again. Patrick Mahomes will win, his fourth Super Bowl? And yeah, I think that's all she wrote. The Viking season ends in the NFC Championship, unfortunately, but however, I would love to see them in the Super Bowl, and I think they can do it. I'm not saying it's all doom and gloom for them in the championship. If the Eagles make it there, or maybe the Eagles don't make it there, maybe it'll be like the Buccaneers, maybe it'll be the Commanders, maybe it will be Green Bay, or maybe there's a way that the Lions will make it and the Vikings don't have to play them. Maybe the maybe the Commanders or Packers will win and they'll play the Lions instead, and then the Lions will make the NFC Championship. You never know. But I think that's how it will end. I think the Vikings will lose in the NFC Championship. I don't think they'll make the Super Bowl, but hopefully I'll be proven wrong. Hopefully the Vikings do make the Super Bowl, and hopefully they will win the Super Bowl. I can see that happening for sure, but I would probably give the Vikings a 5% chance to win the Super Bowl, to be honest. I'd give them a 5% chance. Not impossible, but not highly likely. It just doesn't seem like the Vikings season to me. But I am a little bit optimistic that they can do it. But that's all I have. I'm excited for this week's game, or I guess it'll be next week for the game against the Rams. I'm very positive that they will win against the Rams. I'd give the Vikings like a 60% chance to beat the Rams. So yeah, that's all I have. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you guys think. What will the Vikings do in the playoffs? And we'll see you in the next one.